Hi all, this is Rose and welcome to my YouTube channel. I haven't done a video in a pretty long time, so I wanted to start doing some more videos again. I took a little bit of a break because I had a bit of a healing burst and I needed to take time to focus all my energy on healing. So I'm going to go into just a little bit of what I was healing from. So as you know, I was on, I was depressed. I had mental illness for, my whole life, and I was on a lot of medication, and I went off of those meds. Um, it'll be 5 years in March. So where, no medication at all since 2015, March of 2015. So what happened to me was uh, I experienced from the abrupt medication withdrawal or whatever, abrupt medication discontinuation or whatever, I ended up experiencing what's called protracted withdrawal. Protracted withdrawal is categorized or defined if your symptoms after getting off of meds last more than 18 months. So anything prior to 18 months is considered just regular old withdrawal in the withdrawal community. Anything after 18 months is protracted. So mine was protracted and actually into, all the way into like around uh 3 years or 3.5 years into my um since I got off the meds, I was still had like inability to be around music or noise, and that included music. So I couldn't listen to music. Um, I had a complete and total loss of creativity. I had the inability to translate thoughts and ideas into language. So I had language issues. My executive functioning was still messed up. I couldn't write. I couldn't read fiction at all. It was just, I didn't get it for some reason. Complete and total loss of sex drive and feelings of sexuality. So I just sort of felt like asexual, like I didn't enjoy the experience of being human or in my body. I didn't, all my sort of uh, inability to feel sensory pleasure. So that was like, anything tactile. So if somebody touched me like that, it was like unnerving. It almost hurt. And I also had the inability to taste and a bunch of other stuff. So, but one of the big ones were this sort of like disconnect, this inability to appreciate like any kind of beauty, so as in art and stuff like that. I would have little moments where I appreciated nature or whatever, and a loss of interest in social life. So I had also like this akathisia where it feels like, like it felt like there was something on my skin, like sort of like I could feel, felt like my skin was kind of like a coat and that I couldn't get off ever. And that was very uncomfortable. I think that is actually from the medication. Something, a lot of these things were actually side effects from the medication that became a habit. So what I believe protracted withdrawal is, some of the symptoms are biological, of course, but and neurological. So I had neurological problems, but some of the symptoms had become so like everyday part of my life that they became a habit. So, a habit is like they became looping, like a looping thought pattern. So the symptoms themselves, or the way I thought about the symptoms, actually became its own illness, like its own OCD or obsessive sort of thinking, and I couldn't stop thinking about them. So that was something that I had to finally deal with. And how I dealt with that was I realized, it took me a long time to realize that my thinking was actually perpetuating my withdrawal syndrome. So I had to start to really, really challenge my thinking and to, do things that I wasn't, prior to that time, 3 years or 3.5 years, I wasn't ready to do. And a lot of that was to start to sort of cover my life, my trauma, my past. How did I get like this? How does Rose work? How does my brain work? And to really, really do a deep dive into my soul and into my psyche and try to figure out how I ticked and how I could intercept this sort of thinking. So I believe, our thoughts are patterns, and they sort of get on these neural pathway or tracks. And, when we experience a trauma, or like in my case, the trauma was actually discontinuing the meds, and the trauma was the illness that happened after I discontinued the meds. So that trauma sort of made those neural pathways deeper. I don't know, if that's like a proven thing, but I actually believe that trauma actually deepens neural pathways. So if you're experiencing some sort of trauma that, for whatever reason, those patterns during that experience become a deeper embedded, become deeply like a rut. You become stuck in a rut of thinking. And I think that's why a lot of people who experience trauma sort of can't, it's very hard to recover from it. So, and it's especially hard when you're on medication. So let's just get this out of the way. You cannot recover from trauma while medicated. That is my opinion. And that's because I tried to recover from trauma while medicated for many, many years. And it doesn't happen because the medication cuts off your ability to access parts of your brain. And it takes a long time for you to regain access to those parts of your brain. And while you're waiting for that time, you start developing these thought patterns that become a habit. And so it was time. It was time for me to challenge those thought patterns. I knew it. My recovery process was very organic. You're not ready. I wasn't ready to start dealing with my past until I was ready. And I knew I was ready. So I did a deep dive into my past and started to challenge this pain that I had. And through, kind of unraveling that pain and letting a lot of it go, I healed. So it wasn't like that automatic, but it happened. So there's a lot of things you can do. There's neural retraining. There's emotional freedom or tapping. A lot of people use that. There's psilocybin. A lot of people use that to deal with their traumatic experiences and to retrain their brains. So I suggest at least starting to think about that if you're going through protracted withdrawal, or if you've been depressed for a long time, or you have OCD or all these other things, to start thinking about it as a habit rather than a symptom. A symptom. You have something biological, but you also created this thought pattern next to the biological problem or along with the biological problem. And so there's this double whammy. It's this, this biological thing going on, this biological imbalance, so to speak. And then there's also the thought pattern. And then for me, a lot of the biological imbalance was mitigated through, lifestyle changes and really, really building a foundation for myself of strength. So everything is based off of that. I don't suggest that you go forward until you build yourself a little bit of a base, and that is of lifestyle strength. So the strength in lifestyle is, addressing your health, your physical health, diet. If you have any skin issues and stuff like that, start to address those. get off of like the foods that make your brain crazy, like caffeine and sugar and white flour and stuff like that, that makes your head just go up and down, that actually perpetuates obsessive thinking and things of that nature. So before you even move on to the trauma stuff, like really, really focus on your foundation. And also that would include meditation, exercise, time in nature and things like that. So that's where I'm at now. So it's been, so around, 3.5 years, I started to address my trauma. And it's just been in the last like 10 months that a lot of those neurological problems, my inability to create, my inability to write, my language skills and everything have healed. That is a long time to spend in a state of sort of limbo, like a really long time. And it was a miserable time. And I have to tell you that the whole time I did 100% believe I was going to heal. So I knew, like, when I would become obsessed with, like when I would start to overthink my situation, there was like an objective observer in me that always knew I was going to heal. So I think that's the most important thing, is to always, your body has the innate wisdom to heal. All right. So we've been on this planet, us humans, like 500,000 years. Um, I don't know if that's true, but who knows how long. And, we've really like exploded as a species. And that's not because of medicine, because medicine just came around this past generation or two. And we've been, going at this human thing for a really long time. So your body has an innate wisdom that's connected all the way back, generations and generations of wisdom, dating all the way back to the beginning of time, or at least the beginning of time on this planet. So I just want to let you know that there's hope, and you are going to heal no matter how far along you are in your syndrome or your depression or your OCD or whatever. You have the ability to heal. All right? Have a great day. I'll talk to you later. Let me know what you think and subscribe to my channel. Bye. And follow me on Instagram.